All right, hello everybody. To wrap up our topic here, our chapter here on psychological disorders. First off, I do apologize for not being able to be in live class today, and not being able to get a substitute. So hopefully you're all doing well. But just a reminder that there's Keystone testing next week as well, so we will not have live class on Wednesday, which is May 17th. Had to think about the date for a minute. But I hope to have live class again on Friday, May 19th. But just check out the course page. Make sure you're paying attention to those updates, and that'll help you out. So we're wrapping up with psychological disorders. Some of the ones we're going to talk about today are those eating disorders and personality disorders. So, eating disorders. Of the eating disorders that exist, there are two that are the most prevalent. One of them is anorexia nervosa, which is an eating disorder that causes a persistent loss of appetite that endangers an individual's health. It comes from emotional or psychological reasons rather than biological or natural causes. It usually causes a distorted view of oneself. So you can see here this teenage girl or young girl is very skinny, but she sees herself in the mirror as maybe a little heavier or overweight, perhaps. So even though she's very skinny, she sees herself as not thin. 1% of the population is affected, and 3.4% have partial syndrome anorexia. The other common eating disorder is bulimia nervosa. Bulimia nervosa is an eating disorder that is characterized by binges and purges. For example, somebody may cause themselves to be sick or take laxatives to make them go number two, to be polite. 0.6% of the population is affected with bulimia, and most of the times bulimia affects females. And even anorexia, most cases it's a female, typically young girls, teenage girls, girls in their early 20s. Both these cases impact young women typically. So what is the history of this? Oh, let me go back, sorry. So it was believed that the ancient Romans used a vomitorium to rid themselves of food. This was kind of thought as something natural for them to do. Obviously, we know now it's not what you should do. But bulimia was not established as a psychological disorder until the late 1970s. 95% to 85% of cases of anorexia or bulimia are women in the US, like we said earlier. Most times this impacts young women or teenage girls. Some other disorders that are out there, developmental disorders. Developmental disorders are a group of disorders that can appear at any age, but most commonly they show signs during childhood. One of the most common developmental disorders, and maybe you know someone or you yourself may be struggling with autism, but it's marked by a disability in language, social interaction, and the inability to understand another person's state of mind, where they withdraw into their own world, fail to form or can fail to form normal attachments to their parents. 1 in 68 children will be diagnosed with autism. Now, there are many levels of autism. Some are obviously more severe than others, but there's been a recent increase in those cases. A lot of times the causes are unknown. There's still a lot of research being done about autism. Some of researchers believe it is hereditary, that it's genetics, but again, there's no real um, um, understanding on where it comes from or how it's caused. And then we do have dyslexia, which is another disorder that impacts children. Again, maybe some of you struggle with this or know someone who does. It's a reading disorder where letters, words, and numbers are perceived out of order, upside down, or completely incomprehensible. Okay, personality disorders. Personality disorders are conditions involving a chronic, pervasive, inflexible, and maladaptive, maladaptive pattern. I don't know why I struggle with that word. Maladaptive pattern of thinking, emotion, social relationships, and impulse control. There's different types of personality disorders. One of those is narcissistic personality disorder, where somebody thinks they're so important and they're better than everybody else. They're so preoccupied with their own selves, they don't care about anybody else's fears or success. Antisocial, a long-standing pattern of irresponsible behavior, lacking conscience and responsibility towards others. Um, Typically, we begin to see signs of this before the age of 15, where young people will begin lying, stealing, and displaying unrestrained sexual behaviors. So sometimes we can find some of those early symptoms in children or teenagers so we can get them help. And then borderline personality disorder is unstable and given to extreme impulses without clear reasoning. So antisocial. A lot of times people call these people sociopaths or psychopaths. A lot of times they're typically male. They have a lack of consciousness, seen before the age of 15. They have keen intelligence, meaning they are super smart, but they don't have any real respect for other people or other things. A lot of times people like this may, again, be caught lying, stealing. Sometimes they are caught injuring animals or hurting animals. Again, just kind of weird behaviors. And again, a lot of times they turn out to be criminals because um, sometimes most criminals don't fit this because they show care for friends or family, even if there's no remorse for those crimes. One of the most famous antisocial personalities was another uh, psycho killer was Ted Bundy, who was born in 1946. He kept to himself a lot, chose to be alone. He found it difficult to socialize and participate in organized activities. Felt he was overlooked by his parents, but he used his good looks and his charm to persuade young women. He actually escaped from jail twice before getting arrested again and sentenced to death. He admitted to 23 murders of women between 1974 and 1978, and he was sentenced to death, and he was executed in the electric chair on January 24th, 1989. Super smart guy, super persuasive guy. Like they said here, he was a handsome guy, very intelligent. He was actually going to school to become a lawyer, and he turned out to be a total psychopath who murdered many young women. Again, he was executed, but one of the cases and prime examples of being a psychopath and being antisocial. There are other factors to personality disorders. Sometimes people feel that there's some genetics behind this. Um, a lot of times there are two main factors: childhood maltreatment, so children who don't receive the proper nourishment or children who don't receive the proper care. And then some other people also believe it's some genes that alter the neurotransmitter balance in the frontal lobe of the brain, like you see here. Some predictors of personality disorders: unconcerned with social rewards. For example, if someone offers a child a cookie or a sticker for doing a good job, the child may reject the child or sticker. They're not, interested in those types of rewards. They just kind of do it for their own pleasure in a way, or inflict pain on someone for their own pleasure. They're very impulsive, meaning they don't really think things through. They're uninhibited, meaning they don't really think things through, don't really care about other people's feelings. Low in anxiety, but it can also be a symbol of good things too. Some people who have these skills don't always turn out to be psychopaths and mass murderers. For example, a lot of surgeons may be impulsive and kind of antisocial. So just because someone's super smart and kind of keeps to himself doesn't mean that they're going to turn out to be a Ted Bundy or John Wayne Gacy or all these psychopaths and mass murderers we've talked about. It doesn't mean those things. All right, other disorders. We talked about autism a little bit. Paraphilias, which is pedophilia. We won't talk too much about that in here, but obviously being attracted to young children or children in a sexual manner. Fetishism, which is some of those more taboo ways of thinking about life. Sadist, which is when you give pain. Masochist is when you want pain. Substance use disorders, we've talked about those. ADHD, and that wraps us up. So I hope you all have a great weekend. Remember, no live class on Wednesday again. I hope to see you on Friday then. Take care, everyone. Bye bye.